Here are the most terrifying mythical creatures to ever exist. Or not exist, hopefully. Part 4. An aswang is a highly intelligent, murderous demon originating from the folklore of the Philippines. There are actually 5 different types of aswang, and we're going to talk about all of them. First, the blood-drinking aswang. These creatures look like beautiful young women and often live among human society completely unnoticed, even marrying into human families and living their entire lives without anyone knowing their secret. At night, they will leave home to raid other villages and feast on the blood of the people who live there, feeding off of them with a long, proboscis-like tongue. Over time, they will drain the blood of their husbands as they sleep, slowly weakening them until they die and the creature moves on to its next family. Up next is the werebeast aswang. By day, these creatures pose as travelers and wandering merchants, but at night, they shapeshift into hulking dogs or pigs and will attack and eat anyone traveling the road at night. They have a particular fondness for the flesh of pregnant women with long, flowing hair. The witch aswang is the most evil and intelligent type of aswang. They use their magical powers to curse those who cross them to have rice, bones, and insects spill forth from their bodily orifices. Their eyes possess elongated irises, and they reflect images upside down. If a witch is captured, they will be executed immediately without question, for fear of the damage they could inflict on the community. The ghoul aswang looks humanoid in shape and uses its long fingernails and strong teeth to dig up and eat freshly buried human corpses. They dwell near cemeteries and remain hidden until just after a fresh burial. They reek strongly of death and decay as they feast on the rotting carrion of human bodies. The final variety of aswang is known as the manananggal, or the viscera drinker, but I already talked about her in part 1 of this series. Each type of aswang is an evil, flesh-eating monster, but if you thought those were scary, hold on to your hats and bum cheeks, because these were actually the least disturbing creatures in this whole video, and things are about to get gruesome. La Llorona is a ghostly being from Latin American folklore. She is described as a woman dressed in white robes with long black hair and a face like a pale skull. Once upon a time, however, she was a beautiful woman who, one fateful day, discovered her husband having affairs with other women. In her anger and outrage, she drowned her 2 children in the local river, before coming to her senses and realizing what she had just done, and, in her grief, drowning herself. Instead of going to the afterlife, La Llorona was punished by God to wander the mortal realm as a vengeful spirit, filling the night with her cries and screams. It's said that whoever hears her wailing is destined for misfortune and doom. She is believed to steal children from mothers, mistaking them for her own drowned sons. She will also seduce young men and murder them when they get too close, as a sort of revenge for her husband cheating on her. If you like the video so far, please don't forget to like the video. It might not seem like much, but it's really the best thing you can do to help keep this channel possible. The scariest creatures in the video are yet to come. You're a sailor in ancient Japan, adventuring the high seas. The waters are calm and the night sky is clear. Ahoy, you say in Japanese to your fellow sailors. Ahoy, they reply, also in Japanese. When suddenly, the ocean begins rumbling and the deck is swaying beneath your feet. You gaze into the water and see a massive silhouette rising from the deep, stretching higher and higher into the sky, tens of stories tall. This is the Umibozu, a yokai from Japanese folklore that takes the form of a giant black sea monster. The Umibozu is believed to be the ghost of a Buddhist monk drowned by an angry mob of villagers. The horrible nature of their death causes them to be reborn as horrifying spirits of the sea. They're described as being hairless, with black or gray skin like a shadow, and no features except for a pair of glowing white eyes. They will attack and drown sailors and sink and destroy their ships. The Canansi Stantis is a bizarre creature from the legends of Native America. The stories tell of an unknown tribe that lived on the territory that is now modern-day New York. The winter was harsh, and a terrible famine fell upon the tribe. Everyone was starving and people were dying, and so the men of the tribe held a meeting. The young men proposed that the tribe travel to look for a new home with more food, but the wise elders of the tribe warned that the bitter winter and the famine were a curse placed upon them by the spirits, and it would follow them wherever they go. No, they said, it was best to stay put. The disagreement broke into bloody conflict, and the young men murdered their elders by decapitating them and throwing their dismembered heads into the lake. The young men uprooted the tribe and began walking the frozen land in search of food. But the story doesn't end there. The dismembered heads of their elders which they had thrown into the lake came back to life as canon sistantes, reanimated by the vengeful spirits that had cursed the tribe in the first place. They emerged from the lake in the form of one giant head with tangled hair, which flew through the air on monstrous wings. It flew after the tribe and killed every last man, woman, and child. The moral of this story is that you can't defy the spirits, and waiting for their punishment to be over is better than trying to outrun it. The stories of Draugr come from Norse mythology, where they are known as the corpses of dead Viking warriors that have risen from their graves to wreak havoc on the living. Their skin is blue and black in hue, the colors of bruising and rot. They reek of death, decay, and the smell of graves. They possess supernatural strength and can change their size at will, swelling to enormous proportions. You can tell if a dead Viking will become a Draugr if you find the corpse sitting or standing in an upright position. If this was the case, various precautions had to be taken to stop the dead from returning and tormenting the family. First, a pair of open scissors would be placed across the corpse's chest, and twigs and straw randomly hidden throughout their clothes. Then, the dead's big toes would be tied together and stakes driven through their feet to stop them from walking once they are reanimated. Once the coffin was closed, it would be raised, lowered, and rotated multiple times to confuse the dead's sense of direction. Finally, a special door would be made in the wall to remove the coffin from the house, and then sealed back up. This is because it was believed the dead could only return through the same entrance they departed from. The Draugr is an evil spirit that feels envious of the living for getting to experience the pleasures of life that they once had. They have an insatiable appetite, and they will chase, steal, and eat livestock, pets, and even other humans. A Draugr might die a second death if their body is burned or destroyed, finally forcing them to leave Earth and pass on to the afterlife, as they should have done in the first place. This is the part where I remind you guys to hit that subscribe button. Thank you. The Gashadokuro is a spirit from Japanese mythology that takes the form of a towering 10-meter-tall skeleton. After war, soldiers whose bodies lie rotting in the fields and wilderness are unable to receive proper burials, and their spirits can't pass on to the afterlife. They died with anger, rage, and pain in their hearts, and these emotions fester as the flesh and sinew slowly rots off their bones. Their anger twists them into a supernatural force, and their spirits and bodies can combine into a Gashadokuro, a giant skeleton looming over the trees and buildings. The Gashadokuro is too large and powerful to be killed, and it will wander the countryside, its eyes burning a greenish yellow, stealthily haunting and eating any people it comes across. Their supernatural nature means that they are indestructible, and they will only move on from the world after all of their pent-up rage and malice has been spent, when they will finally crumble to dust. Legends of these monsters go back over 1,000 years, but they are rarer than ever today, now that bloody wars and famine are less common than they were. Lurking deep in the mountains and forests of the Philippines, you might be unlucky enough to come face to face with the creature known as the tikbalang. It's often described as a shapeshifter, but it usually takes the appearance of a lanky humanoid with a horse's head and limbs, standing at up to 9 feet tall with its disproportionately long arms and legs. If the Tikbalong squats down, its knees tower higher than its own head. The Tikbalong has the ability to transform into a variety of creatures, including a majestic stallion, a beautiful human, or even changing into an exact copy of someone familiar to its victims, perfectly mimicking their appearance, voice, and mannerisms. The Tikbalong isn't exactly bloodthirsty like most of the creatures in this video. Rather, its horror comes from its ability to magically confuse its victims into getting lost on paths that should be familiar to them, causing them to wander in circles, passing by the same places over and over again, with no idea how they keep getting turned around. Victims of the Tikbalong can be hopelessly trapped in the mountains like this for weeks, until they collapse from exhaustion and starvation. As always, thank you very much for watching. My name is Alex, and I am really smart. Until next time, farewell!